Have you ever been in that awkward situation where you run into someone on the street, talk for 5 minutes, and then, when you're about to introduce them to a friend, you realize you have absolutely no idea what their name is? And to make it worse, you literally saw them just last week. The name was right there, on the tip of your tongue, but it just wouldn't come. Frustrating, right? Look, this happens to way more people than you'd think. And it's not because you have a bad memory or because you don't care about others. The reason goes much deeper than that. Stoicism, that ancient philosophy that helped both emperors and slaves live better lives, actually has a surprising explanation for this. And believe me, understanding this can completely change the way you relate to people and to yourself. I'm the narrator of this channel, and today we're diving into a topic that affects almost everyone, yet very few people ever stop to think about it deeply. Get ready, because what you're about to discover goes far beyond memory tricks. We're talking about attention, presence, and the quality of your relationships. Before we continue, if you enjoy content that makes you think and brings practical wisdom into everyday life, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Leave a like too. It really helps more people find this kind of reflection. And make sure you stay until the end, because the final insight is the most powerful one. It can transform not just your memory, but the way you move through the world. So why the hell do we forget names? The immediate answer most people give is, I'm just terrible with names. But hold on a second. You probably remember the names of every character from your favorite TV show. You can recite entire songs from memory. You know the names of athletes who retired years ago. So the problem isn't your ability to memorize, is it? Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, wrote in Meditations that the quality of our lives depends on the quality of our thoughts. And here's the key point. When we meet someone new, where is our attention really going? Think about it. You're at a party, someone introduces themselves. While they're saying their name, what is your mind doing? It's probably already planning what you're going to say next, worrying about making a good impression, judging their outfit, or even thinking about what food you're going to grab from the buffet. Their name just slips by like water running through your fingers. The Stoics were obsessed with a concept called prosoche, which means vigilant attention. Epictetus, another giant of Stoicism who began his life as a slave, taught that most people live on autopilot, reacting to the world instead of truly being present in it. And that's exactly what happens when we forget names. It's not a memory problem, it's a presence problem. Seneca, advisor to emperors, said that it's not that we have too little time, but that we waste a lot of it. And we waste precious opportunities for real connection because our minds are always somewhere else. When someone tells you their name and you don't register it, it's not because the name didn't stick, it's because you were never really there to receive it. Now take a deep breath, because this is where it gets interesting. The Stoics believed that everything we do reveals our true values, not the ones we claim to have, but the ones that actually guide our actions. If you constantly forget names, what does that say about where your attention is focused? I'm not saying this to make you feel guilty. Quite the opposite. Awareness is the first step toward change. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that every moment is unique, every interaction unrepeatable. The person standing in front of you right now, you may never see them again, and you're letting that moment slip away while thinking about 1,000 other things. There's a powerful Stoic exercise called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of hardships. The Stoics imagined difficult scenarios not to be pessimistic, but to better appreciate what they had. Apply this to relationships. Imagine that the person you just met is someone who will have a significant impact on your life. Imagine this is the only time you'll ever meet them. How differently would you pay attention? Modern neuroscience, by the way, confirms what the Stoics intuited 2,000 years ago. Studies show that we only remember what we consciously pay attention to. Information that passes through our awareness without active engagement simply never makes it into long-term memory. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in it. But there's another crucial factor that Stoicism sheds light on beautifully. Epictetus made a clear distinction between what's under our control and what isn't. The person's name, not under your control. They chose it, their parents chose it, but your attention during the introduction, that's entirely under your control. And here's the paradox. The more you worry about not forgetting the name, the more anxious you become, and the harder it is to remember. The Stoics would say, you're focusing on the wrong thing. Instead of obsessing over the outcome, forgetting the name, focus on the cause, your present attention. Seneca had a brutal line. It's not that we have a short life, but that we waste much of it. Every time you're physically present but mentally absent, you're wasting life. And it's not just the name you forget. You're losing the chance for real connection, for genuinely knowing another human being. Think about the last time someone truly listened to you. Not the half listening while scrolling on their phone, but real attention, eye contact, full presence. How did that feel? Valuing, right? When you forget someone's name, even unintentionally, you're communicating that they didn't receive your full attention. And people feel that. The Stoics practice something called memento mori, remembering that we are mortal. It sounds dark, but the idea is simple and transformative. When you remember that time is limited, every interaction matters more. Marcus Aurelius would wake up and tell himself, the people I'll meet today will be irritating, ungrateful, arrogant. Not to be cynical, but to prepare himself mentally and avoid wasting energy on unrealistic expectations. He chose presence anyway. Now here's something most people don't realize. When you forget a name, the typical reaction is to fake it or to beat yourself up internally. The Stoics would say both responses are useless. The Stoic response is simple. Sorry, my attention slipped when you introduced yourself. Could you tell me your name again? Honest vulnerability instead of social performance. It's freeing. Epictetus taught that we should separate impressions from judgments. You forgot the name, that's a fact, an impression. Then you add judgments. I'm terrible with people. My memory is awful. I'm disrespectful. But those judgments are choices, not absolute truths. And choices can be changed. The truth is, forgetting names is a symptom of something bigger, a modern epidemic of fragmented attention. We live in a world that hijacks our focus every second. Notifications, worries, endless mental to-do lists. The Stoics didn't have smartphones, but they understood the battle for attention perfectly. They knew that where your attention goes, your life follows. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that deserves to be on everyone's wall. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Ooh, and this hits even deeper when you apply it to something as simple as names. If your mind is constantly wandering, judging, planning, worrying, you're not really living your life. You're living a distracted, shallow version of it. There's a Stoic concept called catalepsis, which means a clear and accurate grasp of reality. The Stoics believed most people live in a fog of confused impressions, never truly seeing things as they are. When someone introduces themselves and you don't register their name, you're in that fog. You're not experiencing reality, you're just moving through it. Seneca told an interesting story about a wealthy man who owned so many slaves that he didn't know their names. To the Stoics, this was the ultimate form of human disconnection. It didn't matter that they were slaves. They were human beings, and not knowing someone's name meant treating them like an object, not a person. Harsh, right? But apply that to today. How many people do you treat like extras in your life instead of main characters? Now, before we go any further, if you're enjoying this kind of content, hit that like button. It tells the algorithm this reflection resonates with you and helps the channel grow. And share it with that friend who's always forgetting names. Let's spread a little awareness. The Stoics had a daily practice called self-examination. At the end of each day, they reviewed their actions not to beat themselves up, but to learn. Epictetus suggested asking questions like, where did I fail to act according to my principles today? What can I do differently tomorrow? Now imagine applying that to forgetting names, not as harsh self-criticism, but as an honest investigation into your level of presence. Here's something fascinating that Stoic philosophy reveals. Our ego is constantly blocking genuine connection. When we meet someone, our ego is busy worrying about how we're being perceived. Do we look smart, interesting, successful? It's a non-stop performance. And in that performance, the other person disappears. Marcus Aurelius, even as emperor of the greatest empire in the world, practiced humility constantly. He reminded himself that he was just a temporary human being, dust that would return to dust. That perspective crushed the ego. And when the ego shrinks, space for real connection opens up. When you truly internalize that you're not more important than the person in front of you, you naturally pay more attention to them. There's a simple Stoic exercise that fits perfectly here. Before any social interaction, pause for 3 seconds and say to yourself, "I'm going to be fully present now." It sounds too simple to work, but that conscious intention changes everything. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, you see what was there all along. Epictetus said we're like actors in a play. We don't choose the role, but we choose how we play it. You don't choose who you meet, but you choose how present you are in that encounter. And that choice, repeated hundreds of times, defines the quality of your relationships and your life. Think about the irony. We live in the age of digital connection. Hundreds of friends on Facebook, followers on Instagram, contacts on LinkedIn. But how many of those people do you really know? How many names would you remember if you ran into them on the street? The Stoics would warn us, quantity is not quality. Superficial connection is not real connection. Seneca was obsessed with not wasting time. He wrote angry letters about how people spend years on meaningless things, and he would probably consider forgetting names a form of waste, not because the name itself is so important, but because it reveals where your attention is. If you can't focus for 15 seconds to remember a name, what else is slipping through your life? Here's a truth that stings but frees you. You don't forget names because you have a bad memory. You forget because you didn't care enough in that moment. And it's okay to admit that. The Stoics were brutally honest with themselves. They believed self-deception was the biggest obstacle to growth. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations not for publication, but for himself. They were constant reminders of the principles he wanted to live by. One of those principles was to treat each person as if it were the last time you'd see them. Imagine the level of attention that requires. Imagine how deeply you'd remember someone's name if you thought you'd never see them again. There's a powerful Stoic technique called negative visualization. You imagine losing what you have in order to value it more. Apply it here. Picture yourself at an event, meeting someone interesting, forgetting their name, and never being able to reconnect with them. They could have been a close friend, a business partner, even a romantic partner, but you lost the opportunity because you weren't present in those crucial seconds. Dramatic, maybe, but the Stoics used internal drama to create urgency, to pull us out of autopilot, because the truth is, real opportunities for connection are rare and precious. And we throw them away by being mentally somewhere else. Epictetus had students who came to him with all kinds of problems. And with almost all of them, he came back to the same fundamental question. Where is your attention? Are you focused on what you can control or what you can't? Are you present or lost in your thoughts? According to him, the solution to most human problems starts with this basic awareness. And here's the interesting part. When you truly pay attention to someone, when you're fully present, you don't need fancy memory tricks. The name sticks naturally because you created a real connection. The human brain evolved to remember what's emotionally relevant, and nothing is more relevant than genuine human connection. The Stoics believed in living according to nature, and our nature is social. We're group animals, wired for connection. But we're living in such an unnatural, fragmented way that even our basic ability to remember one another is breaking down. That should worry us a little. Seneca once asked, "Are you living or merely existing?" Most people are just existing, drifting from moment to moment without truly being in any of them. Forgetting names is a perfect symptom of that zombie-like existence. You're technically awake, technically interacting, but not truly alive. So here's a modern Stoic challenge for you. For 1 week, do one thing differently in every social interaction. 3 seconds before you speak, take a deep breath and choose to be fully present. Make eye contact. Listen for real. When someone says their name, repeat it in your head 3 times. It sounds mechanical, but the Stoics knew that mechanical practices build habits, and habits build character. Marcus Aurelius was obsessed with the idea that each day could be his last, not in a pessimistic way, but a realistic one. If today were your last day, would you waste conversations, forget names, drift off while someone is trying to connect with you? Probably not. You'd be intensely present, absorbing every detail, every moment. The beauty of Stoicism is that it doesn't ask you to be perfect. Epictetus reminded us again and again, you will fail, you will forget, you will get distracted. What matters is returning, always returning to attention, to presence, to your principles. Every moment is a new chance to choose to truly be there. There's a passage in Meditations by Marcus Aurelius that gives me chills every time I read it. He writes, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is still possible, be good." For the Stoics, being good started with small things, and recognizing the humanity of each person, beginning with something as simple as remembering their name, was one of those fundamental small things. Let's talk about something no one likes to admit: implicit social hierarchy. You probably remember the name of your boss, the rich guy at the party, the attractive person who caught your interest, but you forget the name of the waiter, the receptionist, or someone you unconsciously judge as having no immediate use to you. The Stoics would have called this a vice, a moral failure. Epictetus, who spent half his life as a slave, had zero tolerance for this kind of behavior. He taught that one human being is worth exactly as much as another, regardless of social position. If you remember some names and not others based on perceived status, you're revealing values you probably wouldn't like to admit you have. Hard to hear, but necessary. Selective attention goes deeper than that. Neuroscience shows that our brains are constantly filtering information. We can't process everything, so we filter based on what we consider important. And what we consider important reveals our real values, not the ones we post about online, but the ones that truly guide our unconscious choices. The Stoics practice something called oikeiosis. It's not easy to translate, but it basically means expanding your circle of moral concern. We start out naturally caring only about ourselves, then our family, then friends. The Stoics argued that we should keep expanding until it includes all of humanity. Remembering names is a practical exercise in oikeiosis. Seneca wrote that he visited sick friends not to feel pity, but to practice presence. He knew that one day it would be him in that bed, needing genuine attention. He trained himself to be present in other people's hard moments to strengthen that muscle. Remembering names works the same way. It's basic humanity training you'll need when things really matter. Here's something fascinating. Modern studies show that when someone hears their own name, specific areas of the brain light up. It's one of the most powerful words in the world for any individual. The Stoics didn't have MRI machines, but they intuited this. Marcus Aurelius made a point of knowing the names of ordinary soldiers, not as manipulation, but as genuine recognition of shared humanity. Epictetus proposed an exercise that applies perfectly here. When you meet someone, before thinking, "What can I get from this person?" ask, "How can I serve in this interaction?" Not in a submissive way, but as an acknowledgement of human interdependence. When you change the internal question, your attention shifts automatically. Think about how much mental energy you waste worrying about what other people think of you. It's exhausting. The Stoics said, focus on being worthy of respect, not on being respected. Apply that to names. Instead of worrying about the embarrassment of forgetting, focus on developing presence. Remembering becomes a natural byproduct. Marcus Aurelius had an interesting technique. He would look at people and think about their physical composition, atoms temporarily arranged in this exact form. It sounds cold, but it had the opposite effect. It created reverence for the improbability and fragility of each existence. That specific person with that specific name has never existed before and will never exist again. Here's an uncomfortable truth. The way you treat strangers reveals who you really are. Anyone can be attentive to people who can benefit them. The Stoics measured character by how you treat those who can do nothing for you. Systematically forgetting some people's names while remembering others is a brutal moral thermometer. Seneca wrote about how people live as if they were immortal, postponing virtue, postponing presence, postponing real life. Tomorrow I'll pay more attention. Tomorrow I'll be more present. Tomorrow I'll care more. But tomorrow never comes. There is only now, and now in this interaction, with this person saying this name, is your only real chance to be there. The Stoics had a fascinating cosmic view. They saw the universe as an interconnected organism where every part affects all the others. In that view, no interaction is insignificant. Every human encounter is a node in the cosmic web. Forgetting a name isn't just a personal lapse, it's a missed opportunity to strengthen the fabric of human connection. Epictetus said we're like dogs tied to a cart. The cart goes where it goes, that's out of our control. But we can choose to walk alongside it or be dragged. You don't control how many people you'll meet or whether you'll be expected to remember names. But you absolutely control how you show up, prepared and present or distracted and absent. There's a Stoic practice called amor fati, love of fate. It means accepting and embracing everything that happens, including your own failures. You forgot the name? Accept it without drama, but also without excuses. I forgot your name because I wasn't fully present. Can I have a second chance? That disarming honesty is more powerful than any memory trick. Marcus Aurelius faced unimaginable pressure, wars, plagues, betrayals, and still he practiced presence. He wrote reminders to himself not to get swept away by anxious thoughts. If an emperor at war could choose presence, what's your excuse for not being present during a simple social introduction? Here's something few people notice. When you're truly present, time slows down. You process more, absorb more, remember more. The Stoics talked about chronos versus kairos, clock time versus lived time. You can spend hours at a party without being present for a single real moment, or you can have 30 seconds of total presence that stay with you forever. Seneca was horrified by what he called the busy life. People rushing around, always doing something but never doing anything meaningful. Forgetting names is a perfect symptom of busyness. You're technically there, but your mind is already 3 commitments ahead. The Stoics believed that suffering comes from resisting reality. You suffer because you think you should remember names and you don't. But what if you simply accepted that, given your current level of presence? Forgetting is natural, not as resignation, but as an honest starting point for change. You can't get where you want to go without knowing where you are. Epictetus had a line that should be tattooed on everyone's mind. It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about things. You don't feel bad because you forgot the name. You feel bad because of the story you tell yourself about what that means. I'm rude. I'm selfish. I have a terrible memory. Those stories, not the forgetting itself, cause the suffering. Marcus Aurelius practiced constant reframing. He took negative events and looked for their constructive side. Forgot a name? Great. It's a perfect reminder that you need to work on presence. It's an alarm saying, hey, you're on autopilot again. Used properly, every lapse becomes a teacher. There's a Stoic concept called sympathia, the idea that everything is connected and that we either flourish together or fail together. From that perspective, your small lapses in attention aren't just personal, they weaken the entire social fabric. And your victories of presence strengthen not just you, but everyone around you. You're responsible for far more than you think. Seneca wrote something that should be glowing in flashing neon inside our minds. Life is long enough, and it has been given in generous measure for the accomplishment of the greatest things, if it is well invested. The problem isn't lack of time or lack of ability, it's bad investment of attention. And every forgotten name is a bad investment, a missed moment of real human connection. Let's talk about something modern culture hates: discipline. The Stoics were obsessed with discipline, not as punishment, but as freedom. Epictetus said that the undisciplined person is a slave to impulses, moods, and circumstances. The disciplined person is free because they choose their responses. Remembering names requires the discipline of presence, and discipline is freedom in disguise. Here's a question that might make you uncomfortable. How many conversations did you have today where you were truly listening versus waiting for your turn to speak? The Stoics practiced active listening as a spiritual exercise. Marcus Aurelius forced himself to listen to advisors who annoyed him, not to agree with them, but to practice presence even in discomfort. That's a muscle, and it needs training. There's a dangerous illusion most people carry. I pay attention when it matters. But the Stoics understood that presence isn't a light switch you flip on and off. It's a state you cultivate through constant practice, especially in moments that seem insignificant. If you can't be present during a casual introduction, you won't magically become present when things really matter. Marcus Aurelius had a brutally honest nightly practice. Every evening he reviewed his day and noted where he failed, not to beat himself up, but to build awareness. Imagine doing this with names. Today I met 5 people. I remembered 2 names. In the other 3 moments, where was my mind? That kind of honest investigation changes behavior faster than any technique. The Stoics talked a lot about snap judgments and premature impressions. You see someone and instantly categorize them: important or unimportant, interesting or boring, useful or irrelevant. That instant judgment determines how much attention you give them. And it's almost always based on shallow assumptions. You're missing valuable connections because of reflexive judgments you never question. Epictetus told the story of a student who wanted to impress others with philosophical knowledge. Epictetus replied, "Do you want to appear to be a philosopher or to be one? That distinction changes everything. Do you want to look like someone who cares about people, or do you actually care?" Remembering names is a simple, direct test of that difference. Here's something that goes against everything modern productivity culture teaches. The Stoics valued doing fewer things, but with total attention. Seneca criticized people who tried to do 1,000 things at once and did none of them well. Today, we call that multitasking and treat it like a virtue. But your brain can't be in 2 places at the same time. When you meet someone while thinking about 10 other things, you're not really meeting anyone. Marcus Aurelius ran an entire empire. Wars, economics, politics, intrigue, and still, he made time to be fully present with individuals. He understood that greatness isn't about doing 1,000 mediocre things. It's about doing each thing, no matter how small, with excellence. And excellence in human interaction starts with basic attention. The Stoics had a clear view of habits. Virtue isn't a finish line you cross once and you're done. It's a daily practice, moment by moment. Presence is a habit. Remembering names is a byproduct of that habit, and habits are built through conscious repetition, not vague intentions or New Year's resolutions. Seneca said most people prepare endlessly for a future life, but never actually live, always planning, always moving on to the next thing. Meanwhile, life slips through their fingers. You're in a conversation but already thinking about the next meeting. You meet someone but you're already planning your exit. You're always in transit, never arriving. There's a powerful Stoic practice called the dichotomy of control. Strictly separate what you control from what you don't. You don't control whether someone has an easy or difficult name. You don't control whether you have natural talent for remembering names. But you fully control your decision to be present during the 3 seconds when the name is spoken. Focus entirely on what you control. Epictetus was relentless about personal responsibility. No blaming parents, genetics, education, or circumstances. You are responsible for your choices right now, in this moment. That's both liberating and terrifying. It means you can't hide behind excuses anymore. But it also means you have the power to change now, not someday when conditions improve. Marcus Aurelius constantly reflected on impermanence. People come and go, empires rise and fall, nothing lasts. From that awareness came urgency. The person in front of you saying their name is a unique, unrepeatable event in the universe. It will happen once and never again. How do you treat that moment? Here's something deeper. The Stoics believed virtue is its own reward. You aren't present to get something, to impress, or for future gain. You're present because presence is the right way to exist in the world. Remembering names isn't a networking tactic, it's recognition of shared humanity. That shift in motivation changes everything. Seneca feared wasting time with shallow people, but he also knew you never know who will become important in your life. Someone who seems irrelevant today may be crucial tomorrow. The Stoic solution isn't calculating who deserves attention. It's offering genuine attention to everyone, because everyone deserves basic human recognition. The Stoics believed in living according to our rational nature, and our rational nature tells us that connection is essential to human flourishing. We aren't islands, we're nodes in a network. Every interaction either strengthens or weakens that network. Forgetting names weakens it, remembering them strengthens it. It's that simple. Epictetus had a practical technique. Before entering any situation, he paused and asked, "What is my role here? How can I perform it with excellence?" In a social situation, your role isn't to be the funniest, the most impressive, or the most successful person in the room. Your role is to be present. Once the role is clear, the right actions follow naturally. Marcus Aurelius dealt with people actively working against him, betrayers, enemies, incompetence, and still he practiced equanimity and presence. He understood that letting other people's behavior steal his presence gave them power over him. Applied here, even if someone is rude or uninteresting, your choice to be present doesn't depend on their behavior. There's a Stoic phrase that completely reframes difficulty. The obstacle to action advances the action. What stands in the way becomes the way. You struggle to remember names? Perfect. That's your training ground. Every difficulty is an opportunity to practice presence under pressure. Don't wait for easy situations. Start exactly where you are, with the limitations you have. Seneca said, "We live as if we'll live forever, but die as if we never lived at all, because we let life pass without truly inhabiting it." To inhabit life is to be present in ordinary moments, in interactions that seem insignificant. It means that when someone tells you their name, you are fully there to receive it as the gift that it is. The Stoics had a deep understanding of something modern neuroscience is only beginning to confirm. You become what you practice repeatedly. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If you practice distraction, you become distracted. If you practice presence, you become present. There is no magic path. There is only repeated practice until behavior becomes nature. Epictetus had students who came to him saying, "I want to be wise, but I can't." And he replied, "You want to be, but not enough to act. Wanting without action is just fantasy." Applied to names, this is simple. You want to remember, but not enough to pause for 3 seconds and be genuinely present. And it's okay to admit that. Honesty is the first step. Here's a truth no one likes to hear. You make time for what you prioritize. You find time for social media, for streaming shows, for 1,000 things. But you can't find 3 seconds of full presence when someone introduces themselves. The issue isn't lack of time. its priority revealed through action, not intention. The Stoics measured you by what you do, not by what you claim to value. Seneca wrote extensively about the illusion of control. We spend enormous energy trying to control what can't be controlled: external situations, other people's opinions, future events. And we neglect what we actually control: our thoughts, our attention, our responses. That's madness. It's like owning a powerful tool and ignoring it while attempting the impossible. Marcus Aurelius practiced something he called the view from above. He imagined looking down at himself from a great height, seeing his petty worries in perspective. Try that now. Look at yourself from above, worried about forgetting names, anxious about social impressions. See how small it is compared to the vastness of the cosmos. And yet, paradoxically, this small moment is all you have. The Stoics had a nuanced relationship with paradox. They understood that seemingly contradictory things can both be true. Remembering names is both trivial and deeply important. Trivial because it's just a word. Important because it represents recognition of another person's humanity. Holding both truths at once is wisdom. Epictetus said, "Philosophy isn't for dinner-table debates or impressing others with quotes. It's meant to be applied in the mundane details of life. You meet someone in an elevator? Applied philosophy. You're standing in line? Applied philosophy." Stoicism isn't abstract theory. It's concrete practice in ordinary moments. Here's something powerful. The Stoics believed in visualization. Before difficult situations, they rehearsed them mentally, practiced their responses. You can do this with names. Before going to a social event, visualize it. Someone introduces themselves. You pause. Repeat the name 3 times. Create an association. Practice mentally so you execute better in reality. Seneca said, "We can't control the length of our lives, but we can control their width and depth." 2 people may live 80 years, but one lives fully present, while the other drifts through life absent. Which life was longer? The measure isn't chronological, it's qualitative, and quality of life is measured in presence. Marcus Aurelius faced challenges that would break most people. His main resource was always returning to the basics. Breathe, be present. Do the next right thing, not heroic gestures, small correct choices repeated endlessly. Remembering a name is a small correct choice. Repeated 1,000 times, it changes who you are. The Stoics spoke about apatheia, which doesn't mean apathy in the modern sense. It means not being ruled by passions and impulses. When you forget a name and spiral into self-criticism or shame, you're being ruled by emotion. Apatheia is calmly acknowledging the mistake, learning, adjusting, and moving on. No unnecessary drama. Epictetus had a brutal line: "If you want to improve, be prepared to look foolish in external matters." In other words, stop worrying about your image. If you forgot the name, admit it and ask again. The person who protects image over truth is trapped. The one who values truth over image is free. There's a Stoic exercise called seeing things as they are. You take something that causes anxiety and describe it in purely objective terms, without judgment. Someone said a word. I didn't register that word. Now I can't retrieve it from memory. See? Without emotional storytelling, it's just a neutral event. The suffering comes from what you add. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of impermanence. Everything passes, empires fall, people die, nothing lasts. From that awareness came urgency, to be present now, because now is literally all that exists. The past is gone. The future isn't here. There is only this moment, this person, this name being spoken. Seneca had a method for evaluating activities. He asked, "If I knew I would die tomorrow, would I do this?" Applied to relationships. If you knew your time was short, would you waste conversations? Be absent? Treat people as irrelevant? Probably not. So why live as if time were infinite? The Stoics practiced radical gratitude. Gratitude not just for good things, but for everything, including difficulties. You struggle with names? Be grateful. It's a teacher showing you where growth is needed. Without that feedback, you'd remain on autopilot forever. Life is giving you valuable information. Use it. Epictetus said, most people are asleep even while awake, living in a trance of habits and automatic reactions. Waking up, becoming conscious, is the work of a lifetime. Forgetting names is a symptom of being asleep. Remembering names is a result of being awake. The issue isn't memory, it's awareness. Marcus Aurelius began his days by setting intention. Today I will meet people who are irritating, ungrateful, arrogant. Not cynicism, preparation. He chose his responses in advance. You can do the same. Today I will meet people. When they say their names, I will pause and be present. Clear intention creates clear action. Here's what's liberating. The Stoics didn't promise perfection. They promised progress. Marcus Aurelius failed constantly at living up to his own ideals, and every night he reviewed, adjusted, and tried again. You'll forget names again, many times, and that's fine. The question is, are you learning? Are you progressing? That's the only metric that matters. Seneca said, life is a play. Some have long roles, others short ones. Some play kings, others beggars. What matters isn't the role's size or status, but how well you play it. Your role right now in this interaction is to be a present human being. It's not glamorous, but it's yours. Play it well. The Stoics understood that real transformation is slow and incremental. It doesn't happen in dramatic leaps. It happens through 1,000 small choices. Choose presence in this conversation. Choose it again in the next, and again. A year from now, you'll barely recognize who you were, not because of magic, because of repeated choices. Epictetus believed every human encounter is a chance to practice virtue. It doesn't matter if the person is important or not, interesting or not. Every interaction is an opportunity to be who you want to be. And who do you want to be? Present, attentive, awake. Then be that, always, without exception. Marcus Aurelius ended his meditations with reminders that time runs out. Not morbidly, but as motivation. Use what you have while you have it. Be who you want to be now, not later. So I'll ask you this. How much longer will you postpone presence? Postpone real connection? Postpone actually being alive? This is your moment. There won't be another. Here we are at the pivotal point of this journey. And here's the most powerful revelation of all, the one I promised at the beginning. Forgetting names is not a memory problem. It never was. It's a presence problem. And presence is not a cognitive issue. It's an existential one. It's about how you choose to inhabit your own life. The Stoics understood something it took modern psychology centuries to catch up to. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness observing your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. When someone tells you their name and your mind drifts, you can choose to bring it back. That power of redirection is your greatest tool." Seneca made a radical statement that changes everything when you really let it sink in. It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that things are difficult. Being present feels hard because you don't practice it. If you practiced every day, in every interaction, it would become natural. The difficulty isn't the task. It's your resistance to committing to it. Epictetus taught his students to make a crucial distinction between preferences and necessities. Do you prefer to have a good memory for names? Of course. Do you need it to live well? No. What you need is integrity, alignment with your values. And if your value is respecting the humanity of others, then you practice presence. Remembering names becomes a byproduct, not the goal. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that death could come at any moment. He didn't use that to live in fear, but to live with intensity. Really imagine internalizing that. Every person you meet, you may never see again. How would that change your attention? How would it change the way you receive their name? Here's the blunt truth the Stoics weren't afraid to say. Most people waste their lives, not because of a lack of opportunities, but because of a lack of presence. You can be in 1,000 amazing places, meet 1,000 fascinating people, and not be truly present in any of those moments. Life slips through your fingers while you're lost in thoughts about yesterday or tomorrow. Seneca feared reaching the end of his life and realizing he had never truly lived, and he watched people around him doing exactly that, existing without living. Do you want to be that person? The one who reaches 80 and realizes they spent their entire life absent, missing connections, missing moments, missing life, because every forgotten name is a symptom of that absence. The Stoics practiced something called the view from the wise person. They imagined how a fully wise person would respond in any situation and tried to imitate that. So ask yourself, how would a wise person be present when someone introduces themselves? Completely. No divided attention, no snap judgments, just pure presence, acknowledging another human being. You can do that right now. Epictetus had a line that deserves to be carved in stone. Don't seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Wish for them to happen as they do happen, and you will be happy. Applied here. Stop wishing for a perfect, effortless memory. Accept that you need to train presence. Accept that you'll fail. Accept the process. And within that acceptance, work steadily. Marcus Aurelius spent his life serving an empire that probably would have crushed anyone with stress. He could easily have become bitter. Instead, he practiced love for humanity. He saw each person as part of a larger organism. And when you see it that way, when you understand we're all connected, forgetting someone's name is like forgetting the name of a part of your own body. It's neglecting a part of yourself. Here's something that should make you uncomfortable. You know the names of celebrities you will never meet. You remember fictional characters in absurd detail, but you forget the names of real people in your life. What does that say about where you invest your mental energy? The Stoics would say you're living upside down, valuing the distant and imaginary while neglecting what's present and real. Seneca used to ask his students, when will you begin to live? And the correct answer was always the same, now. Not when you have more time, more money, more preparation, now. With what you have, where you are. Want to be more present? Start now. Not at the next party, not at the next event, at the very next interaction, whatever it may be. The Stoics understood something deep about change. It has to be backed by strong reasons. You don't change just because someone tells you to. You change when you viscerally understand why. So here's your why. You have one life, one, and that life is made of moments, and moments are made of interactions with other human beings. Wasting those interactions is wasting your life. It's that simple and that important. Epictetus said that true freedom comes from not being controlled by external things. When you desperately need to remember names to feel worthy, you are not free. You're a slave to other people's approval. But when you practice presence because it's the right thing to do, regardless of the outcome, you are free. See the difference? One posture is slavery. The other is freedom. Marcus Aurelius had a gratitude practice that included being thankful for difficult people in his life because they taught him patience, resilience, virtue. In the same way, be grateful for your struggle with names. It's teaching you presence, humility, attention. Without it, you might spend your entire life on autopilot. It's a gift disguised as a problem. Here's the final and most powerful truth. None of this matters if you don't act. The Stoics despised philosophy that didn't lead to action. Knowledge without action is useless, Epictetus said. You can understand everything we've talked about here and change nothing, or you can choose one thing, one specific practice, and implement it today, now, not tomorrow. Seneca ended many of his letters with variations of the same message. Act now. Time is passing. You are not immortal, and that's what I'm saying to you. You understand the problem, you understand the solution. Now all that's left is to do it, and doing it starts small. It starts with deciding the next time someone tells me their name, I stop everything and I am present. The Stoics believed that every moment is new. You are not defined by all the names you forgot in the past, that past is dead. You are defined by the choice you make now, in this moment. And right now you can choose differently. You can choose presence. You can choose awareness. You can choose a lived life instead of a wasted one. Marcus Aurelius ended many of his meditations by reminding himself that tomorrow might not come. Perform each action as if it were your last, he wrote. So here's my final challenge to you. Treat the next person you meet as if they were the most important person you'll ever meet. Not because they are, but because that attitude creates presence. Presence creates connection, and connection creates meaning. If you've watched this far, you're someone committed to real growth. Not quick hacks or shallow techniques, real transformation. And I want to know, what was the most impactful insight for you in this video? Drop it in the comments. Let's start a real conversation. And look, if this content moved you, if it made you see things differently, you should subscribe to this channel. We don't do disposable content here. We go deep into ancient wisdom applied to modern life. Hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and give the video a like. It helps more people find this. One more thing. On the screen right now, you'll see two related videos. One on how Stoicism can transform your relationships as a whole. Another on practical presence techniques the Stoics actually used and that you can apply today. They're perfect continuations of this journey. Don't stop here. Remember, you are not your past failures. You are your future choices, and the future starts now. So choose presence, choose awareness, choose real life. The Stoics gave you the map. Now it's time to walk the path. See you in the next video, and may you be truly present in every moment of your life.